Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. Today we're doing a video on my 1969 F-250 four-wheel drive kind of build truck we did about a year ago now, where I put a couple of trucks together and made me a decent highboy to drive around. I've been driving it for quite a while now, and I think I put around 6,000 or 7,000 miles on it or so. It's just kind of my daily driver back to work kind of a truck. Since I live out here in the country, you know, it's a plenty truck for me to do that, you know, driving back and forth on the old county roads like we got here today. And kind of wanted to give you guys a little update, and it needs a little work, so we're going to dig into that in this episode. So stay tuned, we'll find out what's wrong with it. So this truck, like I said earlier, I've been using it for about a year, put several thousand miles on it, a couple of oil changes, and this thing has been great. I love driving it around. It's kind of the old farm truck experience, range truck is what I call it. You know, just it's not good enough. You don't have to worry about scratching it up or dinging it up or getting it muddy or hauling off stuff in the bed back there. You know, it's just good. It's good enough to look good, but it's also bad enough that you can just use it and not really care. So that is kind of why I built this truck, because my ultimate highboy that I built on this channel, my 67, it's pretty nice, and I don't really like to drive it when it's muddy, and I don't like to haul off like limbs and stuff in the back and stuff like that. I didn't really like beating that truck up as much. But this one, I don't really care as much. I mean, I don't beat it up as abuse it, but I just use it, you know, basically. So so anyway, that's why I built this truck. But it's had some problems. It really hadn't had much in the way of problems. If you go back and watch the videos on this truck, I pretty much went through the whole thing, the chassis and the engine. I didn't rebuild the engine, but I kind of went through it and made sure everything was decent on it. But that engine had been sitting in the truck that it was in, the donor truck for the highboy frame. It had been sitting in there, I think, for a while. So first thing that decided to change out on it was the carburetor. The carburetor that was on it, I think, was actually one that was on the two-wheel drive, the one-ton frame that this one was. I think that was actually off that engine, and it just started running poorly and needed choke to run. It just kind of wasn't giving enough fuel and just kind of running poorly. And I had a remanufactured carburetor on the shelf, so I just threw it on because I was in the middle of doing something. We were working or something. I needed this truck to be running better, so I just threw a carb on it, and it's been really good since then. It drives really nice with that new carburetor on it. That was not very long after I built it, I think, in the fall. And then pretty reliable there. I think in the spring I had the water pump go out, which is pretty common on something that's been sitting. You know, the front seal went out and it started leaking on me, leaking antifreeze. So just swapped out a new water pump. That's no big deal. And I did have the fuel pump fail on me, which it did have a new fuel pump on it when I built the truck. But I can't remember what went wrong on this one. I think it was the spring on the arm that runs the fuel pump. I think the spring broke, and then the arm did never return, so it wasn't pumping, and that quit on me. I put a new fuel pump on it, but other than that, this thing has been really reliable. Nothing really major has gone wrong with it, but right now we have a problem with it, and I thought I would bring you guys along with the repair because I had some time and I might film a video on it for you guys. But let me step on the brake and see if you guys can hear the problem. I don't know if you heard that or not, but the hissing sound, this thing has a vacuum brake booster, and I'm guessing the diaphragm in there is leaking, and I've lost a lot of braking power on this thing, so I don't have much assistance on the power assist brake pedal, the booster. So I have a new one back there. You can see the box. I have a new brake booster back there. We're gonna slap this thing on and see if get this thing stopping again. I had a trailer hooked up to it the other day, and it was interesting to say the least. The first corner I came to and realized I didn't have any brakes, but luckily we can get a brake booster. I know not very long ago those things were really hard to come by, and I couldn't find one anywhere, I think, when I was doing the Harbor Blue Highboy, but luckily the one on that one was still good, so I refurbished that one. But my local parts guy got me that one in. It wasn't too expensive, like $100, and we're gonna get this thing on today. But another thing that indicates to me that the booster is bad is whenever I step on the brakes, the tone of the engine changes, because you probably can't hear it, but it's basically you're making a big vacuum leak because that diaphragm's broken, and it runs off engine vacuum. So when that's leaking, it's giving the engine too much, or it's dropping the vacuum, basically giving the engine too much air. So anyway, we're gonna get this thing back to the shop, and we're gonna start digging into it and see if we can get that booster changed out real quick, and I'll bring you guys along. Well, guys, we got it pulled in the shop here. I thought I would kind of give you a tour of the truck. If you're new to the channel and you haven't seen this thing before, this is my 69. I call it my ranch truck. So just an old work truck. And this was originally a F350 1-ton. That's where the cab came from anyway. And just two-wheel drive truck. And there's a lot of stuff wrong with that chassis. Like the rag joint was going out of it. The transmission had bad synchros in second gear, I think. And just a few odds and ends. The engine wasn't running that great, and I had actually got that truck up and running way back on the channel, and you know, I didn't do enough to it originally, and it was just kind of needing some work. The brakes didn't work. I didn't touch the brakes originally, so all that kind of stuff led me to build this truck. I had a 71 Highboy sitting around, and pulled the cab. The cab was all rotten in an old farm truck and beat up and tore up. And didn't look very good, and pulled that cab off of there, put this cab on it, and I put a single wheel flatbed on the back because the 1-ton had a wider bed. You know, it didn't look as good, plus it was 9 foot long, and this just has an 8 foot bed on it. So put this truck together, and it's just kind of a work truck, like I said. It does have a factory grill guard. It does not have the down bars on it because I haven't, you have to attach into the frame down there, and I haven't got that, I haven't done it, basically. Whenever I built this truck, I was running out of time and had to start cutting hay. And I got this thing together like in a day in advance to when we started putting up hay. And I didn't have time to put those down bars on, and I have since not touched it. So anyway, it'll do the job, I guess. It's not bad. I'm not running in the cows with this thing anymore. If I can get the hood open. Ugh. Here's the old 360. It's a little greasy, but you kind of get that on an old FE that you're working. It looks like it's leaking there on the front of the intake manifold. Pretty common. The breather's leaking there a little bit. But overall, this thing has been real low maintenance and not a problem. You see there the new water pump there. Put a water pump on it and that fuel pump, and basically that's all I've done to it. Radiator hoses, I guess I didn't mention that. Had to put radiator hoses on it. I think I had new belts on it whenever I built the thing, but right here is what we're after, the brake booster. So this thing right here is the hose that goes down to your intake manifold, and it gets manifold vacuum, and it runs your brake booster. There's a little plastic check valve here that has to work, and basically that just helps with your assisted brakes, helps assist the power of your brakes. So most of the Highboy trucks have manual drums, and where it wouldn't have the booster on it. But since this was a two-wheel drive truck, it's a little more common to have a booster on those for one reason or another, and left it on there. But that is the original. So the master has been changed, but that's the original booster. It's going to be a really easy swap. Basically, you have 4 bolts here. Got to take the master off, the hose off, and then 4 bolts. And then the problem that's going to be a pain, or more of a pain, is the push rod down in here, under here. basically because you can't hardly get to it. But there's a push rod attached to your brake pedal, and that is what actuates your brakes. And it actually is an adjustable push rod on this one. I'm not sure which ones have adjustable push rods or not, but I know when I ordered this, they asked me if it was an adjustable push rod or not. And it really wasn't all that expensive. I think it was around $100 for this. So if I can get it off one-handed, let me set the camera up so I can get this thing unpackaged. Well, I guess that answers the question as to why it wasn't very expensive there. I'm gonna have to yank that sticker off. I'm not gonna want to see that every time I look at the truck. But it doesn't come with the standoff brackets. These little things. If you're just like trying to put a brake booster on a truck that didn't have it, you have to have these little standoff brackets here. You can see them right there. Those things. And then the adjustable push rod, you have to have that. The eyelet that goes, there's a little thing that screws in here so you can adjust your brake pedal and get it all set up right. But I'm gonna get, we're gonna do this video a little bit different since we're not doing a bunch of major work on this thing. You know, usually I set the camera down and try to knock some stuff out and show you guys what I'm doing. Since all we're doing is this thing right here, I thought I would bring you guys along and show you a little bit more of working on this truck. And it's gonna be a pretty simple remove and replace job, but you get to see me working on the old Ford. So let's dig into it. All right, we're up here under the dash, and the first thing I'm going to do is get this bolt here that connects the push rod to your brake pedal assembly. The bolt right up here above your brake pressure switch, and it's kind of a goofy bolt. It has a great big 3/4 head on one end, and then the nut back here is a lock nut, and it's 9/16. So you get that off, and then you'll be able to pull that brake booster off when you get everything unbolted onto the hood. I like to do this first just because if I get going under the hood, I'll forget. And then I have everything loose under the hood, and then it's kind of a pain doing this last because that push rod will be loose and floppy. But if I do it first, then I don't forget. It's pretty easy. I was kind of complaining about it when we started here, but it's really not that bad. Here's the nut, and there we go. Brake pedal's free, and here's that bolt. Like I said, it's got a great big head on it, but it's got a big shoulder there that the eyelet of the push rod holds on to. But I am going to unhook my battery because my brake light's going to be on now because that's your brake light switch. So I'm going to unhook my battery so my battery's not dead when I go to start the truck again. All right, well now we're under the hood here. The next step is going to be taking off the master cylinder. I am going to leave the brake lines connected and try to just pull it off and leave the master kind of hanging here. Hopefully the fluid doesn't all run out of it, because I don't want to have to bleed the brakes again and get all that the air out of the system after cracking the brake lines and getting a mess everywhere. Plus, I don't want to have to, I'm really happy with the way this thing stops whenever it does have a working brake booster. I got the brakes working really good on it. So, oh, man, those are tight. There. It shouldn't, I replaced this master cylinder not long ago. I guess it was, I think it was already on there when I built the four-wheel drive version of this truck, but it shouldn't be that tight. But they are lock nuts, so. I have to go back and watch the video on this truck when I built it, but I think I redid all the drum brakes. I can't remember how deep I got into it. That was a year ago now. And I guess my memory doesn't go back that far. But I guess since we're talking about the videos, I will link all the videos on this truck in the description. It hasn't really been on the channel a lot, but it has been on the channel a few times, and it's really popular on my Instagram, which is Cubic Motorsports on Instagram. You know, I post a lot of pictures of this basically because this is my daily driver, and I'm in it a lot. So that's what I take a lot of pictures and stuff in. It's on my Instagram. That's not going to fit. So if you're looking for more content on this truck, I'll link that on the in the description as well, so you can check it out. It seems to be pretty popular. I think guys like the just kind of the rugged aspect of it, and just kind of a good old work truck, and that's probably why I like it too. Nothing wrong with a real nice fancy restored truck, but sometimes you just kind of like an old work truck. All right, got the master cylinder unbolted. Hopefully there won't be any surprises behind here. Sometimes they can leak fluid in the back. Nope, we're all good. If the seal's out, sometimes there's fluid in there, but all that looks good. Now, the next step, all we have to do now is unhook the breather line, which I'm going to yank this. I don't have a screwdriver to undo that clamp. I'm going to pull this check valve out so we don't have to cut the video. I'll undo that before we get it back together. And the next step will be the 4 bolts back here on the firewall. I think they are 9/16. And they are kind of hard to get to. Let's see if I can get to it from behind the hood. If the hood was off, this would be a lot easier. Okay, that's not really working. Now there were 2 different types of brake boosters on these trucks, the 2-wheel drives anyway. There is a dual diaphragm and a single diaphragm. This one is a single. The drum brake trucks had this type, and the disc brake trucks, the 2-wheel drive, had a disc brake option started in '68, and it's a lot thicker. It has a dual diaphragm booster, and I know for sure those are hard to come by, and the core is very expensive. So I luckily have a few of them laying around here, but I don't have any that I don't have a need for them because I don't have a 2-wheel drive truck with disc brakes that's running anyway. Some of the crew cabs I have them, but none of them that are running. That the Winter Green 72 crew cab I just sold recently here, it had disc brakes in the front and had that dual diaphragm booster, but luckily it was still in good shape. I think I just had to change out that check valve. Okay, these bolts are going to be real stubborn, and I'm going to knock them all loose and get a little further along so you guys don't have to see me struggling. But once we get those knocked loose, I'll get you guys caught back up here before we pull this thing out of here. Okay guys, I changed my mind. I gave up on the bolts on the firewall because those things are being real stubborn. They've probably never been out in the life of this truck. And I am instead going to try to take out the bolts that the actual booster is. Actually, they're nuts and studs right here on the back of the booster itself. So I'm not taking the bracket off the firewall, and I'm going to get those 4 off and see if I have any better luck doing it that way, because those other ones were being a real pain. So let's see how I get along with those. They're a little bit easier to get to, at least on this side. The engine side is going to be a little tougher, but and I can't fit my ratcheting wrench on the end of it. That was the whole goal of this thing. That was my main plan. So we have to do it by hand. Yeah, these are turning a lot easier. So I'm going to get working on these things and then we'll see if I can get this thing pulled off of here. I have all the nuts off the back of the booster there. On one of the nuts there was this little tag, so I don't know. This is kind of making me think that is not the original and probably a reman at some point, because that doesn't look like a Ford part number to me. But it did have this tag on the back of the boost, and I just dropped it. But it did have the tag on the back there, so this could be an aftermarket unit, a remanufactured unit, which I guess as old as this truck is, that shouldn't be out of the question at all. But I have them all loose. Let's see if we can get it out of there. Hopefully it just comes right out. Might be a little, yeah, it's gonna come right out. And there we go. So the booster is out, and there is like a little plastic thing here, and I think that is a mud dauber, but I think there should have been a filter in here. I don't know if that needs to come out with the new one, or the new one will go in that plastic sleeve there. We'll see how it all fits together. Alright guys, so I did check on the that little plastic deal I showed you on the firewall there, and it does stay in place, and this seal here slides up in that and kind of seals the firewall from your the engine bay to the inside of the compartment there. So that does need to stay in place, although I did have to trim about a ½ inch off of it. It wouldn't slide up on this thing far enough, and it was keeping the booster from sliding up in there, so I don't know what the problem was there. But trimmed off a ½ inch on it, and it slides up in there nice. So the next thing we need to do is screw on our ends for our adjustable push rod. So we've got to swap this guy over, as well as check the push rod for the master cylinder there. See, it's adjustable. I'm going to measure from the flange there where the master cylinder bolts onto the end of that, and get this adjusted so we're in the ballpark, because if that's it looks like it's too far in right now, we're going to have loss of motion there with our brake pedal, so we'll have a bunch of dead travel with our brake pedal before the push rod starts pushing on the master cylinder. So I'm going to get that adjusted up. Same thing with the push rod back here. I'm going to measure back here for the mounting flange just to get it right in the ballpark, and then our brake pedal will be in the right position. So I'm going to get after that, and then we'll get this thing installed. Alright, so I got the eyelet there swapped over. It was exactly the same, so I didn't have to adjust the jam nut there. So all that was the same, so that's all checking out. But on these push rod here, it does have a paint mark on it there, so I'm guessing if you adjust that, you void your warranty. That's why they have that kind of stuff there, tamper-proof marking. So it's really close. I measured it. This is about 3/4 of an inch sticking out. No, this one's about 3/4 of an inch, and this one's about 7/8, so it's really not much. So we'll see how it works. If it is way off and the pedal has a bunch of dead travel, that's easy to adjust. Once you can just pop the master cylinder off and adjust that pretty easy. So next step, all we're lacking is to get this thing installed. So let's go do it. All right, so this is going to be a pretty easy install, pretty straightforward. There you can see that plastic deal I was talking about. I just cut a little bit off of it. I don't know if I was doing something wrong there, probably was, but I definitely had to trim a ½ inch off there to get it to fit the way everything's set up now. But it does still fit, it still seals up. So now it's time to get the booster installed. Now we do have to make sure the check valve is in the same position because our hose isn't going to fit otherwise. And we'll just slide it in there and get it installed. Luckily they did give us new hardware, so once we get it in place, the bolts or the nuts should slide on there a lot easier than the old ones did. Have to get that rubber boot kind of slid in there. And if I can do this without blocking you guys' view. Let's see if I can do it from on top of the engine a little bit better. Was having a hard time getting the booster shoved back far enough, which is the basically that rubber boot is causing problems. Probably could have trimmed a little bit more off of it. All right, got one in. Let's see where we lined up. There we go. Just needed some extra persuasion. All right, before I get too carried away, I'm going to go inside the cab and make sure that push rod is in the right spot and not like on the wrong side of the pedal or something. Just to make sure I'm going to be able to hook it up before I tighten all the nuts up. All right, we're good to go there. It was in the right spot. So all we have left is to tighten up the nuts. Now the thing is standing off about a 1/4 inch or less, that rubber boot is kind of pushing it off. So I was hoping that it would just kind of fall into place and you could just hand tight the nuts up or with your fingers, but it seems to be a little bit of resistance there on that. So I'm having to push on it while I tighten them up. Not a big deal, just takes a little bit more effort. There we go. Once we got one of them pretty much tight, the other one's screwing pretty easy. Go ahead and tighten these up while I'm on top of the engine, so I can climb back up here. We can't forget our vacuum line. Because that is what makes this whole shebang work. Got a little check valve out.
Wonder if this thing still worked. Let me see. Yep. See how it's still stuck to my thumb there? It works. So the check valve definitely wasn't a problem, but I didn't think it was anyway. I think it was the diaphragm. So yeah, all that we have left now is the bolt on the inside of the cab. So let's go knock that out real quick. Got you guys set back up here under the truck, under the dash rather. We'll get this little bolt in here, if I can get my hands snuck in there. This might be the hardest part. And there's no real way to get your hand up in there. There we go. If I can get the nut on there without shoving the bolt out. Yep. Here we go. When I did this, I had a deep socket. I don't think I'm going to be able to do it with a shallow one. Let me get that deep socket. All right, here we go. All right, and that's the installation done. So guess we hook the battery back up and see if our hiss went away when I step on the brake pedal. All right, the brake pedal feels good, maybe a little softer. Yeah, just I was worried. My brake lights aren't going off. You see that? I pull up on the pedal, they go off. Step on the brake and they stay on. So I'm gonna have to adjust that push rod some more. I think that is that push rod on the master cylinder. Since it was a little bit shorter, it's not pushing back on the pedal as hard. So I am going to pull that bolt off and unscrew that eyelet a little bit more. Give us a little bit more push on that brake pedal so my brake lights don't stay on. But let's go ahead and give it a try. Got it in second gear. Let's see, I'm moving there, if you can tell that, but I'm going to hold the brake and see how strong the brake pedal is. Oh yeah, I can almost kill the truck. Yeah, it is not moving. So that's good. That means our brakes are working really good, even though the brake lights, are they on right now? Yeah, they're still on right now. So brake lights are staying on, so that's no big deal. I just have to pull that little bolt off on the brake pedal and spin that thing out a little bit more. I'll probably do a couple of 3 turns and then put it back on there and then see if our brake lights stay off. So I'm going to get that knocked out and then we'll go take this thing for a test drive and see how the brakes work. All right, let's give these brakes a test. Seem to work pretty good. Whoa. We haven't had brakes like this truck, I don't think, ever on this truck. So that booster must not been working very good the whole time I've had this truck. 'Cause, man, that made a big difference. Let's see if I can, well, this will be fast enough. This is about 25. Yeah, I'll take that all day long. I can take off into third gear without having to shift. Shifting a manual with one hand is kind of tough. I'm going to show you guys the speedometer so you can see how fast this thing's shedding off speed when I hit the brakes. I am really impressed with that. I am going to have to put new boosters on all my trucks that I'm working on, although this is the only one I have that has vacuum brakes. My other trucks I'm working on have Hydro Boost, so that's not going to help me any there, because those things work pretty good by themselves. But let me show you that. You can see my dusty gauge cluster there. Let me get the speed up here. Here we go. Locked up the brakes. And this thing's working really good. So I'm really happy with that. So anyway, guys, I guess that's the end of this episode, because we got the brakes working real good on the range truck. And it's back to being a good old daily driver for me. I do need to change the oil on it. I guess I could have done that in this episode. I'm going to go change the oil on it. I'll see you guys in the next episode. Be sure and let me know down in the comments if you like this video. Just doing some little maintenance stuff here and there. If you guys like seeing that, I actually have some maintenance planned on my tow truck. It's a 2012 F350 with a 6.7 power stroke. I'm going to be doing some upgrades to it. Turbocharger and new injection pump and stuff like that to make it a little bit more reliable for me when I go on truck buys and stuff. If that's something you guys want to see, let me know down in the comments below. I know it's a little bit off the norm for this channel. Usually we're doing old Ford pickups, but if you guys want to see that more modern diesel stuff, let me know, and I'll get that video made up of that and put it on the channel. But for now, I'm just going to enjoy my nice new brakes on my range truck, guys. Give me a thumbs up if you like this video. Subscribe if you want to see more. I'll see you guys in the next one. Thanks for watching, guys.